Hidden secrets in the morning dew. Nature's larder waits so kind. Well-being song for heart and mind. Breathe it in, calm and free. Earth and sky in harmony.
Hey there, herbal heroes. My name is Tony. Welcome to the Humble Herb podcast, where we dig deep into the world of natural wonders. Ever wondered who actually creates, makes and sells those amazing health products in your local health food stores? We're chatting with the passionate people behind your favourite natural products and those who promote them to understand more about the variety on offer. From skin-loving serums to superpowered supplements and other well-being elements for your body and mind that you may or may not have heard about. Get ready for insider secrets, earthly wisdom, and maybe even a few giggles. Hit subscribe and let's grow a healthier, happier you together. Welcome back to the Humble Herbs podcast. Today I'm talking to Debbie Love, which I think is a fabulous name for the work that you do, Debbie. And Debbie's a counsellor. But one of the reasons for getting Debbie on the show is to actually find out a bit about counselling, what sort of counsellor Debbie is, and what it all means, really. So I'm going to say, welcome, Debbie, and I'm going to start by asking if you'd be kind enough to just give the listeners a little bit of background about yourself and what inspired you to get into counselling in the first place.
Okay. So there was a pivotal process rather than a moment. I had counselling when I was in my 30s. My whole experience of counselling changed everything for the better for me. Early life had not been kind to me, leaving me as someone who totally lacked self-belief, had very little confidence and would not take a chance on anything in life. Through counselling, I very slowly began to believe in myself. Over time, this led to taking a different route in life, which in turn began to open new opportunities to me. I came to a crossroad in my life and needed to make a career change. I was totally encouraged by my husband to do a foundation counselling course. This totally linked into the counselling I had experienced in my 30s. From that, I dared to apply to university and was accepted on a postgraduate course in psychodynamic and person-centred counselling. I graduated in 2004. My husband headed up a safeguarding team, and this introduced me into the realms of young people and the various struggles and difficulties associated with this area. I was advised by a tutor at university to specialise in an area that would give me a specialist field and keep me employed, basically. This piece of advice was pivotal to my successful career in counselling. I specialised in working with young people. I had an unpaid placement, which we all do in counselling. It was in Connections, a young person's government-run agency. And I continued in that. Instead of doing a couple of years, I continued for 5 years because I'd found my niche. I loved this work and have continued in it for the past 20 plus years. Many continuing professional development courses later, along with experience of working in schools over 20 years, youth work, community outreach, and privately, I think my passion for what I do is clear to see and hear. So a big shout out for my counsellor, my tutor, and my dearest husband, who has always believed and encouraged me.
I think it's interesting because for people that don't know much about counselling on the outside, one of the things you said there might be surprising to them. There's a number of different areas in counselling, but that's true, isn't it? There's a whole range of different areas that you can look at as a counsellor.
Yeah, I mean, you do get sort of a lot of agencies that will work with drugs and alcohol. You'll get women's sort of refuges, and people will work specifically with women. Trans. There's so many young people. It's quite a specialist field because you don't counsel young people in the same way. I mean, I have worked with adults, and sort of carers of young people, so parents, teachers, which I've also enjoyed. But my specialist passion is in the area of young people. But yeah, you'll get people working in sort of birth, loss of a baby. There are many, many, many specialist areas. Yeah.
So really, just going through the foundation program of being a counsellor just gives you that baseline, and then you sort of specialise in one area. Is what I'm hearing. Is that right, Debbie?
Well, I did the foundation course, and then I went and did general counselling, like psychodynamic and person-centred counselling, which are two quite opposites in counselling, actually. But I did that at university. It wasn't until I was in university and needed to look for a placement that I decided to specialise, and that was really you don't have to specialise. You can just do a generic course. But I chose to because I was advised that would be a good, and it has always served me well, really, and I think concentrated me on all my professional development. I've concentrated on all the sorts of things that you would imagine for young people, like self-harm, and school issues, family issues. I've really concentrated on all my professional development in those areas.
So as we're obviously you're on the Humble Herb podcast, this is slightly left field, but if you were to, I don't know, if you were to look at a plant or a herb or something like that, if counselling was a plant or a herb, what sort of plant or herb would it be, and why?
I love this question. For me, it would be a rose without any hesitation.
Okay.
For many reasons, actually. When a rosebud is in its early stages, it's tightly wrapped in a green covering, and you have no idea at that point what that bud will evolve into. That tight green bud will eventually open up and show its full colours. At the point of it being a green bud, it holds so many hidden gems. Is it scented? Is it large? Is it small? What colour is it? And as people go through counselling, we gradually peel away the layers to reveal parts of ourselves that we may not realise were there: capabilities, self-worth, confidence. And then you can also, on a sort of a slightly different angle, link the rose to, it represents so many emotions. The red rose representing love, romance and passion. Pink can convey gratitude. Yellow is often associated with friendship and happiness. The rose thorn equally can has meaning and can symbolise challenges and difficulties. And expressions like a rose between two thorns has been used to suggest a lovely person between two negative or unpleasant people. So the rose has a lot of meaning, as do we as human beings.
Oh, I think that's really lovely. I will accept that answer. That's a beautiful answer, Debbie. So I don't know, from the sideline, sometimes like counselling is cloaked in mystery. It's almost like this is a potential perception that counselling is in a grey area. It's there. Not many people know about it unless they go and seek it out, and then they will hopefully find it really useful, and it opens up a different world. But what's a common misconception that people might have about counselling that maybe you could set us straight on, Debbie?
Well, I think there are several, so I'll cover a couple.
Okay.
So firstly, counselling as a sign of weakness. That's one that I often hear. On the contrary, I see it as a sign of strength. It can take a lot of strength to pick up a phone and make an appointment to deal with, in some cases, worries and concerns that have been carried for years. Indeed, I remember a boy who finally came to see me at a drop-in centre at his school. He said, "I've come here about 8 times before I plucked up the courage to come and speak to you."
Oh, bless him.
And those 8 visits just melted away once we got talking. And adults can also find the idea of counselling very scary. It's often unknown and can be quite daunting. They'll often think about contacting someone many times before actually making that initial contact by phone, email, or through my website. I'll usually have an initial phone call. And so this is me, and I'm not saying all counsellors are the same, but I like to have an initial phone call to address any worries or concerns that people might have. And I don't charge for that. I just like to do that to try and calm the situation down. And this generally allays many worries people have and successfully helps to move on to the next step. So that's my first one. And my second one is counselling is only for big problems. And often I would hear this at school, actually, with the young people that well, I don't think I've got a big enough problem to, come and see you. And counselling is for all, no matter how big or small the problem may seem. If someone is struggling with the discomfort of carrying something that is bothering them, we as counsellors do not measure individual issues on a scale. Counselling can help to unravel and make sense of something, leaving the person feeling in a much better place to get on with life. I often find someone will come with a problem they've never spoken about before, and they've never spoken to anyone because they think that they're the only one to have this problem, and therefore it's unfixable, often thinking, am I the only person with this odd problem? For an example, I've seen many young people who are pre-autism or ADHD diagnosis, and they'll often feel misunderstood by others and don't understand why they feel different to others. In counselling, you'll be heard, not judged. You'll be shown empathy and understanding and have someone to work with you as you progress through these concerns and find a way forward. But I can understand why people think counselling is only for big problems, because with the current situation with the overstretched NHS mental health services, people are often signposted elsewhere for help, leaving them feeling their problem was not big enough. So I suppose I'm talking from a private counselling, but I saw a lot of this when I worked in school.
I mean, just listening to you there, is it fair to say that if people, I'm going to try and, I suppose my question is quite general really, but if people have a particular issue and they carry it through school, college, university, whatever it is, early life, let's say, is it always with them, Debbie? I mean, at some stage people come along that have been carrying stuff for a long, long time that needs to come to the surface.
Well, I suppose I kind of have always linked it to a plant. So if you get a young plant and it's not being watered, so its needs are not being met, you don't water it and it starts to wilt and slightly go off course. Of course, it doesn't grow upright anymore, but suddenly you start to give it food and you give it water and it starts growing up. You will always be able to go back to that point where it kind of went off course. So I think it's like, if you don't, it's dealing with things early on is the better way. I always think prevention is better than cure.
Of course.
But do they, I think for as long as they're dealing with that, it will influence how they're dealing with things. Depending on what sort of problem it is. So it will always kind of be there, and it might escalate. You might add to it because you're perhaps going in a direction that may not benefit you all the time, but you keep making the same mistakes. But you're not really aware of why. You're not making those links and understanding why you're doing this, but getting very frustrated that things keep going wrong in the same way. So for a lot of people, yes, it can carry on through life. But I do think that you can start to, I mean, I suppose as an example, I had a lady who came to see me and she was in her mid-30s and she had many breakdowns of relationships, not just, her boyfriend, also with her jobs. It was affecting many areas in her life.
Okay.
And suddenly she came to a halt where she lost her job, she lost her boyfriend, or it just wasn't working. and she came to see me, and we took it right back to where it seems that the problem started, which was when she was 15. And we unraveled it, and she really made progress, and she got on with her life. She went off, she got a job, she got a boyfriend, they moved in together, things went well. And later on, something else went wrong, and she came back from miles away. But because she could see that actually we'd undone something, we'd completely gone back to the beginning, unraveled it, and then made some sense of it. And that took her forward in a much better way. She wasn't making those same mistakes anymore.
Oh, that's really nice, and it must be quite nice for you as well to experience when you hear, because I guess some of the time people leave you and you don't know if it's, your service has worked or not. They just disappear, I suppose. They go, right, I'm fixed, I'm not coming back. But just on that point, I mean, what's one of the most rewarding aspects of the work that you do, Debbie?
Well, okay, so I think the trust that people put in me to go on that journey with them while they open up their deepest, darkest secrets, which in some cases have not been shared with anyone before. So this is rewarding and it makes me feel like it's a total honour that they have trusted me. To be allowed on their journey, to sit with them as they face their fears, and it can be very fearful, is to become a very privileged part of their growth and progress. For me, it's seeing someone who is struggling with something in their life, finding a new path or way forward. And metaphorically speaking, it's like watching a bird learning to fly. When they first come to see me, their wings already exist, but they're not flying. It's wonderful to gradually witness them fledge the nest and not just fly, but to soar high into the skies. It's wonderful.
Mm. That's really nice. I mean, if I'm sitting at home at the moment, obviously listening to this podcast and some of the things you've got to say, and it's starting to resonate with me, but I might be hesitant about trying counselling or knowing who to speak to about this. What's one sort of gentle encouragement that you might offer or suggest to someone?
I would ask what their hesitations or concerns are. Then I would try and answer those concerns or worries. There are many reasons people are hesitant, so this would need exploring, which I'm always happy to do. And I would never pressurise anyone into going. While working in school, the young people who came to see me were on occasion sent. Therefore, it wasn't their choice. And ultimately, they were not going to talk about their problems if someone else wanted them to have counselling.
Yeah.
However, on nearly every occasion this happened, I would explore why they felt they had been sent and what they might want to get out of coming. I'd be very clear. I wouldn't tell them that I would tell them that I'm not the only counsellor. But if they would like to consider doing this with someone else, I'd help them to find someone suitable to them. I would also totally support them if they didn't want to see me, which would also, that can also happen. I would explain carefully to their parent or teacher that they, in my opinion, are not ready yet, because they may get into trouble for not complying with the parents' or teacher's wishes.
Right.
And
Okay.
I wouldn't want to use the term "they do not want to come," because this puts the onus on them. And indeed, it may not be the right time, and genuinely, they might not be ready. And counselling doesn't work if you're doing it for someone else. It has to be because you want to do it.
So you have to get to a place where you want to explore the challenges in your world, or
Yeah, very much so, because in nearly all cases I've dealt with, I find this totally honest and transparent approach works, and the person may well decide to give it a go. And it might not be immediately, but it can sow the seed that leads to starting counselling, because they choose to do so on their own terms. But very often, you might have heard with somebody, as an example, in drugs and alcohol, it's no good people saying forcing someone to go for counselling, because they're not going to absorb what they need to absorb, and they're not going to offer what they need to offer, and be there because they want it. They need to really want it for it to work.
I think that's a really important point, because would it be fair to say, well, let me ask the question: do people come to counselling, come to see you because they expect you to fix the problem for them?
Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes some people will come and think you're the one with all the answers. But I will often say, especially with young people, I'll say, there's one expert in this room. Who is it? And they always say, you. And I say, no, it's you. Because the only person who's an expert on you is you. And I can only work with what you give me.
So that comes back to your point about alcohol or drug abuse. People have to be in the right place
Yes.
to have made their own mind up, because they're their own expert.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So, are there any surprising or unexpected areas of life where counselling can be really beneficial?
Well, nothing really surprises me. In my 20 plus years of counselling, I've seen many varied and unusual areas of concern where there have been helped by unraveling and making sense of, then establishing a different way forward. If we do things, if the way we do things is constantly not working, then it's a good time to think about doing it differently. I find the link between mental health, mental and physical health, very interesting. But I do believe there are many people who do not believe that worrying, stress, anxiety can impact on physical health. For example, a severe headache can be brought on by stress, heart attacks, ulcers, are some of the many areas of physical health that are impacted by mental health. Um, Doctors will often ask someone to see a counsellor due to an unexplained constant physical symptom that has been explored with no diagnosis. They might want to see if there are any unexplained psychological symptoms. And there are often some very good outcomes from going down this route, and not to the detriment of the physical symptoms being looked at. So, relationship issues, personal growth, setting and achieving goals, academic challenges are just a few of the many areas of counselling that can be helped.
Oh, that's good, and that's nice to know as well. It's nice to know that GPs, doctors out there are looking at alternative threads as well, rather than just the write a prescription type thing.
Very much
That's
so.
good to know.
Yeah.
So talking about the mental well-being, I mean, has your perspective at all on mental well-being evolved since becoming a counsellor?
Well, I have evolved in my own right, embarking on a career in counselling. Um, in many ways, I've changed and evolved since my extensive training. I see the world through a different perspective now, questioning everything and anything, and open to exploring alternative ways forward. My curiosity has grown and helped me to empathise with the most unusual of situations, which in turn has had a huge impact on my perspective of mental well-being. As an example, COVID, I was very open to seeing the vast difficulties that might be ahead due to our world becoming so insular for adults and particularly for young people.
Yeah.
One minute we had the freedom to just go out socializing anywhere, no questions. Then overnight, our lives were turned upside down and into what felt like an alien world. What was happening felt unbelievable and extremely scary. There was a daily announcement of a toll of people dying and being hospitalized. This situation had a massively detrimental impact on the mental well-being of many. However, since becoming a counsellor, I feel I have evolved into a much more flexible person in having the ability to adapt to whatever is thrown my way, giving me the skills to deal with the most extreme of situations the world was presenting to us. Before I trained to be a counsellor, I'm not sure I would have had the ability to deal with such extreme mental health concerns. with a view to looking ahead at outcomes being that of a more positive future, well-being approach. I'm now a big believer in prevention rather than cure, as I said earlier, which is in itself a reflection of ongoing positive building of well-being for the future. So that's kind of how it has impacted on me.
So, what about as a listener? I mean, what's the power of counselling? You've touched on some of the elements, but if you had a message for people listening in, slightly thinking as well about shall I, shan't I? Is my issue big enough? All those sort of things that you've sort of touched on, really. But if you could give listeners one takeaway message about the power of counselling, what would it be? Do you think?
The ability to change where it seems impossible. Where the impossible becomes possible, unlock your potential. And that's what I see it as. There was a professional singer who came to see me, and she would work. She sang on stage to vast audiences, and she suddenly just couldn't go up there and sing anymore in front of an audience. And she also couldn't go out and socialise. Everything had closed down for her.
Well, I never.
We worked for 6 weeks, and in 6 weeks she came and she was so determined to change things. So she did believe in the impossible, and actually at the end of those 6 weeks she was back on stage and she was out socializing again. So that to me is the power is the ability to change, and where it seems impossible, the impossible becomes possible.
I'm just taking that in, really. It's quite nice, isn't it? Someone once told me the mind works best like a parachute when it's open. And it's so true, isn't it? I mean, if you're
Absolutely.
open to change and open to taking some time out for yourself and sitting with someone,
Yes.
well, anything can happen, can't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I can see the difference with people who come who are really open to what and really want to look at change, to those who, sometimes it's a real kind of battle. But then, sometimes people are holding on to things that are like habitual. It's been going on for years, and it's hard to make that change because they hold on to them for safety.
Hi, everyone. Just interrupting the show for a second, so please bear with me while I introduce today's supporters of the show, Cozy Earth. And that's Cozy with a Z, Cozy Earth. Now, Cozy Earth have basically got an incredible store over in the US. They ship worldwide, and they tend to focus on luxurious items. So they deal a lot with bamboo. So they've got women's clothing, they've got bath collections, premium bedding, and their bamboo bedding is luxurious, cooling, sophisticated. And the same with their pyjamas as well, the bamboo pyjamas. But anyone, just for being a Humble Herb listener today, we can offer you an exclusive 41% discount if you decide to take a look at their website and purchase anything. So to do this, you just have to go to Cozy Earth. Remember, that's with a Z, cozyearth.com/discount/the Humble Herb. And that will get you a 41% discount. And it also helps to support the show as well, which is great. But anyway, I'll put the link in the show notes so you can check it out if you wish to. But there's some great stuff over there, so I urge you to take a look. Anyway, thanks for that. Good luck and happy shopping with Cozy Earth. I'll get back to the show now. Just going off at a tangent, Debbie, do you think counselling, therapy, whatever you'd like to term it, is becoming more accepted in the UK? Because historically it was very much, stiff upper lip and make do and carry on, all that sort of thing. But a lot of people I speak to now don't blink an eye when they talk about being in therapy or having counselling. I mean, is that fair? Do you think the perception's changing?
Definitely. I see, definitely men used to be so opposed to going to, saw it as a huge weakness. But working in the school, my last school I've just finished at, 17 years I worked there for, and boys at first would struggle to come, but by the time I'd finished, I had one student who came in and he said to me, "This should be on prescription."
I'm
So
inclined to
it,
agree.
it was so. Yes, I think the UK has become a much more open to counselling, and in fact, counselling now, like you look at child and adolescent mental health services and adult mental health services, they're flooded. So I do think it is much more used and much more acceptable in society to, it's not just because I think we're not ill because we have counselling. We're just choosing to, if you have something wrong and you go to a doctor, you're looking to try and get it fixed. And it's the same. If you can make your life easier by just unraveling things, then why not?
Do you know, I think one of the beautiful things about some of the people that I get to speak to is there's not really any downside from doing something natural or genuine or talkative. That the worst that happens you're in no different a position. But isn't that a great thing to try before picking up a prescription? Maybe
Yeah.
in my mind, I think it's a fab option, really.
Yes, I think, kind of going to bed, peace of mind at night, not churning something over and over and over, the same thing. Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm totally a believer now. But I think that people who haven't tried it, and in fact, someone a male in my own family, the last person you would have thought would have got counselling was actually telling another relative, "You need to go counselling."
No, that's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing,
yeah,
Debbie.
yeah, yeah.
That's a
So
beautiful thing. Well, just talking of that, what about what's a skill or quality that you've developed through counselling and obviously the journey you've been on that has positively impacted on your own life?
I would say empathy. Developing my empathy skills has helped me to have much better relationships by understanding and validating others' emotions. That in turn has helped to foster much deeper and more meaningful relationships, particularly within my family and friendship circles. I think with empathy, you learn to listen and rather than jumping in, you're listening and empathizing, and it's so well received by others. They feel heard, understood, appreciated, and loved. And I don't have to agree with everything to empathize. I can understand, but I can hear, but I don't have to agree. And I think another thing I learned was agreeing to disagree, but respecting someone has a right to a different point of view has taken me so much further.
Oh, that's a nice answer. I
Yeah.
like that. Um, what do you think was a question you wish more people would ask about counselling?
Anything. Anything they want to ask but dare not. I just would wish they would ask. Um, and this often happens in counselling. They will hold on and I've done it myself. When I was doing training and when I had counselling earlier. Um, this holding back on wanting to ask a question um, can I remember challenging my own counsellor once. I realised when she was very pleased I had finally stood up for myself and questioned something rather than passively just agreeing,
Okay.
that I had just taken a massive step forward. And this took strength, courage, and anger, all sort of emotional. But I finally got there and realised I didn't have to be angry to question something, and I felt so free. This was pure growth and progress for me on my counselling journey, and I want this for my clients. But I know that they will only get there when they are ready to do so. So patience as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough, isn't it? That's fair enough.
Yes.
So, can you paint a picture of the diverse range of individuals who might seek to support through counselling? I mean, is it a range? Is it a particular type?
Well, my immediate response to this question is everyone and anyone, from young to old. I could give you a list, but anyone who is not on that list might feel that it doesn't include them, which is why I would say everyone and anyone. So I can name a few, but this should not exclude anyone. So as an example, there are a wide array of individuals that may seek counselling, including those experiencing mental health challenges like depression or anxiety, those facing life transitions such as grief, divorce, or job loss, and those dealing with relationships difficulties or addictions. People from diverse and varied economic backgrounds like education, job types, and incomes, genders, age groups, varying physical or mental abilities. All of these and many, many more can and do benefit from counselling. And in essence, anyone who is experiencing distress, struggling with challenges, or seeking personal growth may find counselling a valuable tool for improving their well-being and navigating life's complexities. Therefore, the picture I would paint would be all inclusive, bar none.
That's really nice, isn't it? And I think something you said earlier, which resonates, is the fact that it's a very non-judgmental. It's crucially non-judgmental as a service that you provide, isn't it? So anyone that rocks up with anything that's on their mind, that's fine, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Usually, I find that people will come with one thing, but very often that's not the main thing that they're ultimately going to end up exploring. Yeah, so I think, and I also think it's not about. It doesn't. I think some people think, well, there has to be something wrong or something dreadful, but for some people, it's just like something. My life just doesn't feel like it's going along as I think it should, and I want to explore, is there anything I can do differently? And I think also that counselling opens up the possibilities to anything, to changing and sort of finding within yourself
Well, and
so
just on
much
that, Debbie,
more.
if I come along to see you, do I have to come for 10 sessions or 20 sessions, or can I just come and see you once, or how does that work?
Absolutely, absolutely. Some, there are no. I can't. It's not for me to make that judgment.
Right.
I will obviously. I can see when something's going to be long-term work, and we might discuss that. I'll always be honest. But for some people, yes, and for yet some young people I saw at school, they would come once, we'd unravel the problem, and they'd go away with a few perhaps strategies and things, under their belt, and that would be enough. But they would also have opened that door and would know that they could come back.
Mm. That's good to have that support in the background, isn't it,
Yes,
for whenever
yeah,
you need it.
yeah.
So, for someone that's listening that's considering taking the first step, looking at counselling, what does that initial process typically look like for them? You mentioned there was perhaps a phone call initially, but what's the overall process, Debbie?
So first, it's about finding the right counsellor, um, because it has to be someone that you feel that feel comfortable that you can talk to. You can search online for a counsellor with organisations like the BACP, which is the British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy,
Okay.
and this is one that a lot of us are sort of registered to. Um, Counselling Directory, which I'm also in. Again, both of them, I'm registered members. They both have informative lists of reputable counsellors and psychotherapists and the areas they're located in, costings, the types of issues they cover, age groups, and more. But you can also speak to your GP to ask about counselling. It's helpful to make that initial contact once you have found someone. So, for example, as I said earlier, when someone contacts me, they will often send me an email or a message giving a brief idea of what they're looking for. And if I have availability, they will usually leave a telephone number for me to contact. For me, I like to make that initial telephone contact free of charge to chat through what they're looking at and how I may be able to help.
Right.
Uh, they may want to think about it and come back to me, or they may want to make an initial appointment. For me, I believe the most important thing is that first appointment is to build rapport. I've always felt this. It can be quite scary to go into a complete stranger and open up. I'm very aware of this, and I pride myself on enabling people to feel at ease in a very short period of time.
Mm.
Particularly, when young people come in to see you, and you can see they're like a rabbit in headlights. So I try in the situations like that to make that connection within 10 minutes. It's good to think about what you want to achieve from counselling before you go. So as a client, maybe write down some notes. But for some, they do not know what to expect, and therefore they do not have any expectations. And that's also okay. My job as a counsellor is in that first session is to help explore some of this in a non-judgmental, empathic way and try to establish what goals you may have or what you want to achieve from coming. We'll discuss how often you might come, how long the sessions are, costings. And by the end of the first session, many people will know if they want to continue and if they feel comfortable enough with me as a counsellor to continue working. So some may go away and think about it, and that's absolutely fine. The first session is about client and counsellor establishing a way forward. So to sum it up, this first session is about introduction and relationship building, sharing your story, goal setting, discussing the counselling process, our working agreement in counselling, confidentiality. This might seem like a lot, but some of this would have been discussed over the initial phone call
I
anyway.
see.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, I mean, so someone comes along to you. That's interesting. What you said earlier is there's so many different areas. If it might not be that someone doesn't get on with you, it might be it's out of your expertise or out of your area. So, do you sort of hook up with other counsellors to be able to sort of point someone in the right direction if it's not something you feel you can deal with?
Yeah, I mean, working with young people, I have been able to pick up pretty quickly that someone might need to have an assessment for autism or ADHD. And I do see it as my role to try and help them on that journey to getting there. When I was at school, it was I would sort of connect with certain psychologists, psychiatrists, and we would sort of, they might contact me to say, with the permission of the client, to say, why do you feel this? And then they'll put together their information and my information. But yes, so it would be a case of referring on because I don't diagnose.
Right, I've got you. So it's
Yeah.
working
So
with a whole range of professionals together.
yes, I mean, when I was at school, there was so many. It was sort of social services, and so I've got a lot of background in where people have difficulty, and parents might want to speak to me. I had one not so long ago, and they just wanted some advice because social services were involved, and they just wanted to know. They were scared,
Yeah.
and so we talked it through, and they did find that helpful. But yes. I've worked with many, many professionals, doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, psychotherapists, nurses. So a lot. So, and that can be very helpful, actually.
Well, and it's just sprung to my mind. I mean, you're helping all these people, you're listening to people's issues, challenges, concerns, situations. Who supports you, Debbie? How do you or your fellow counsellors get that backup and support that you might need?
Well, we have to have clinical supervision.
Right.
I'm a supervisor myself. I've done the training, but we have to have clinical supervision where we will go and we will discuss anonymously discuss cases, and that way it can be picked up where there might be something that you're not seeing yourself, sort of looking at ways forward. And it's so holding for a counsellor. I mean, I love going to supervision because that's, to me, is like, when I've had big caseloads and lots of work going on, especially when it was COVID and everything, it was just nice to have someone to go and just feel very held. But equally, it kind of goes round in circles because I go to my supervisor, she goes to her supervisor, they go
Right.
to their. So we all have a clinical supervisor.
Well, I quite like that. It gives me some comfort as an outsider, sort of looking in. You think there's almost, although you're seeing one person and it's very confidential service, it's non-judgmental, but that person is getting the help and support that they need in order to help me. That's how what I'm hearing is that's correct, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So what you mean, like with the supervision?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I mean, yeah. When I was doing the training, the one thing, a big thing you had to pass was the ability to say, I I think I've gone wrong here. I think that I've come to kind of talk this through, and to have that ability is really important. To you might think also there's things like there's different terms that we use in counselling. So there's one like called transference, where we might be acting, or the client might be acting towards us as if we were a certain specific person in their life.
Right.
And if we react to that in a certain way, that will be called countertransference. Now, this can be very positive, and it can be, you can work through, and it can be really helpful. But if you're not aware that that this is going on, when you take this to supervision, it can come up. You can pick it up within the supervision, and so there's a little bit of steering goes on there. I think this might be happening, and you explore it, and it's you learn so much, and it's a real eye opener going to supervision.
That's really interesting, and
Yeah.
it's quite reassuring as well, actually. So there's this sort of apparatus that sits behind any counsellor to keep them safe and sound, but also to look at what they're doing, help and support, so that actually me as your client gets the best job the best Debbie I can get almost.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. Because I guess you could become complacent, but no, I think too. I love having my supervision because it's good. It keeps you on your toes, and it just keeps you examining what you're doing. Keeping your eye on yourself and looking after yourself as well.
So everyone that's listening in on the podcast today, they're sitting there thinking, "I'd love to chat to Debbie and see sort of how I can work with her and how she can help me." So if that's the case, where can people find out more about your service, Debbie, and you?
Well, I have a website with full details of everything I do, my training background and more, and it's called Counselling at the Barn. You can email me at Debbie at, like as in the A with a
Yep.
little curl around it, Debbie at counselling at thebarn.co.uk. You can message me on, I can give you a telephone number, which is 07946 376 420, and I will get back to you. You'll also find a link through my website and through counselling directory that will also take me through to that. And I also have a QR code on my leaflet that will take you straight through to my website, but I'm not sure whether you'll be able to put that up. But if
I'll
maybe
put
you can't.
I'll get some links on the podcast details, but if not, there will definitely be a link to your website on our website, on the Humble Herb website, thehumbleherb.com. If you go to the podcast page and the partners page, there'll be a link over to Debbie and her website, which would be great. But yes, you've given out your number now, Debbie. This goes all around the world, so you might be getting calls from everywhere, all over the world,
Listen,
which would be great, wouldn't it?
I have actually worked with someone way away over towards New Zealand way, a young
Fantastic.
person, and and that went very well actually
The world's a
online.
small place these days,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, yeah.
Well, listen, all it remains for me to say is thank you very much, Deb. I mean, you've covered an awful lot on counselling. It's opened my eyes, certainly, to what you do, how you do it, and what sits behind it, and some of the things that people can come along and sort of talk to you about. So hopefully that'll inspire anyone, someone sitting out there, just thinking, what shall I do to pick up the phone or pop in an email and actually get things going. So thank you very much in time for your time, Debbie, and talking to me today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me on the Humble Herb.
That's okay. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And that's the tea for today's episode. We hope you're leaving with a head full of knowledge and a heart full of, well, whatever makes your heart full. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a dose of the Humble Herb, and tell your friends, because sharing is caring, especially when it comes to good vibes and great information. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep it herbalicious.